that take research work seriously, such a nation is bound to flourish, and such a nation is bound to provide employment opportunities for its young people, and also bound to be proactive in solving problems that may emerge within the nearest future, and to see that issues that are plaguing the society are well resolved. At the level of the nation, agriculture plays a key role. In fact, it is a backbone of every economy. And that is why the Cameroon's government and any government of the world will play emphasis on creating research centers and facilities in order to navigate and ensure that research is being done to provide food for its people, and also to provide support in the areas that needs be. In the educational sector, the Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of State and Ministry of Higher Education also emphasize on research and ensure that research facilities and grants are being put in place for professors in state universities to carry out research in order to identify problems plaguing the society and to help the government in formulating policies that will move the nation to a place where many will want it to be. And that is why, if you look at the current state of our higher education family, most of our state institutions or state universities, some private universities, are making strides and effort in order to improve on their research facilities, such that the young men and women who are very energetic, who have a place to make their voices heard, and will have a place to provide solutions that will help the nation grow in a different perspective, whether it is at the level of the cultural, whether it is at the level of the political, whether it's at the level of whichever direction. Don't get me wrong. Also at the level of historical fact, research cut across every sector, whether it is culture, whether it is history, whether it's literature, whether it is economics, research cut across every sector. In Cameroon, for example, the Cameroon's government has made it a policy that most institutions must have research facilities. Professor Bernard Fallon of blessed memory, a revered professor in Cameroon at the time, once wrote in his book titled The Genuine Intellectual. And Professor Fallon said, and I quote, that any university without research facilities, without centers for research, is more of a glorified secondary school. And I quote again, Professor Bernard Fallon, in his book titled The Genuine Intellectual of blessed memory, he said in that book that any institution, any university without research facilities, without research centers, is more of a glorified secondary school. And he went further in stating that universities is not a university, is not for the mindless mob, but for the talented tent. That a university is not for the mindless mob, but for the talented 10. That is to say that a university is for those who are research-based fellow, who don't think in terms of mob or don't think in terms of following the bandwagon, but there are people who take their time to see why certain things occur and why certain things exist the way they are. And that is research. And if we stream down, if I want to borrow for Professor Fallon to globalize it within the nation perspective, to say any country, any nation that does not put money or does not invest in research is more of a nation that is doomed to fail in all the sectors. And that is why we are putting the question to you today on House of Commons. Looking at the geostrategic position of Cameroon, and looking at the Iraq Center, the Institute of Agricultural Research and Development, that we have 5 geopolitical zones. What is being done by the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation to ensure that research in Cameroon is taken into a new dimension, that research in Cameroon is being done to provide hands-on solutions to the problems plaguing Cameroon. Also, where is the research money, and who eats the research money, and how is the money being spent, and how much is the budget being given to the different Institute of Research and Agricultural Development. I'm talking about IRAD. I'm talking about also the Ministry of Higher Education. How much is being put in place to cater for research facilities in this country? And who is responsible for the effective usage of this money? Just at the time when the head of state, commander-in-chief of the nation, guarantor of our national security and sovereignty, #1 statesman and promoter of national unity and consideration, President Paul Biya, said that effective or accelerated decentralization will play a key role in the advancement of Cameroon. But when we look at the research center, it is a problem that many of these research centers are not effectively being funded. In fact, those within the IRAD Center, I take example, those within Ekona Research IRAD Center, those within Kumba IRAD Center, if they have to do their funding, if they have to lobby for money above a certain amount, they have to go to Yaoundé. And sometimes they shuttle to Yaoundé to and fro. And I ask the question, where is the place of decentralization in also the aspect of research? Is it that those manning these research centers in Ekona and also in Kumba cannot actually manage money effectively, or is decentralization only limited to some ministries, to some institutions? This is House of Commons with me, Tamai Jarvis. Want to say happy Sunday to all those of you watching us from the different social media platforms, from YouTube and also from our different Facebook pages. Happy Sunday to all those of you watching us on TV in Bamenda, in Boya, in Yaoundé, in Edeya, in Kribi. Happy Sunday to those of you watching us in Douala, watching us out of the country. We want to say happy Sunday to you. And also I want to wish you Manu of the Cora Negro, Manu, a happy birthday and many more years to you, Manu. May the good God continue to guide you. Joyeux anniversaire to you, Manu. May the good God continue to guide you as you celebrate your birthday this Sunday. Many, many years and more blessing to you, Manu, from the Choir Negro. And also in the studio, we are expecting panelists who are here to make their way here into the studio. We are awaiting the presence of Dr. John Ako, and also that of Ndiwum Emmanuel, and also that of Professor Akumbo Mark. But here in the studio, we have Professor Innocent, who is a research fellow and also someone well grounded as far as research is concerned. Professor Innocent, thanks for joining us, and happy Sunday to you. Happy Sunday to you, and we want to say we're happy to have you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jarvis. Thank you very much for inviting me for this wonderful program this Sunday afternoon. Where is the place of research in Cameroon GDP? It's a very interesting topic. We are trying to revisit this because it's not actually a new concept. We have a lot of development theories that have actually dwell on this. But then I would like to maybe really wonder why we're not thinking about the net factor income from abroad. That would have been maybe we would have been talking about the GNP, the gross national product, and not necessarily the gross domestic product. So we shall be looking at this keenly, and we shall be actually informing the people who are listening to us, and we hope that our listeners too as well will be contributing, so that together we may offer some conclusions that can be helpful to our policymakers.
Thank you very much. We'll be getting back to you. Just also to let our viewers understand that they can participate in the program by also sending us their messages here in the studio. We are just being joined by Barrister Dr. John Ako, who is making his arrival into the studio. He will be also looking at this issue of research as far as research is concerned. You can send us your message on using the numbers on your screen. You can also participate on our Facebook page to look at the place of research in Cameroon's GDP. And we want to welcome you, Dr. John Ako. It's a happy Sunday, and thanks for taking time of your busy schedule to have to come and participate on this educative program.
Yeah, Mr. Tama, it's a pleasure once more again. We are talking Cameroon, and again what concerns education. And you should equally learn that research is the key factor the catalyst for every development. But then, it remains a pity that today Cameroonians look at those who are called researchers as a mercy to themselves, and maybe as a form of propaganda to get some benefits for themselves. Research is made to serve the nation. Research is meant to serve humanity. Research is meant to serve the world. If there has been any country that is talking of development, there is no country without research.
Yeah.
And what type of research? We talk of quality research. In the United States, we talk of R&D, which means that there is a direct link between research and development. So which means that there will be no development without research. And Cameroonians will bear and accept with us that if Africans are the way they are, it is the stress, the strength, the means made available for research. The type of research again will matter. Does the country even consider research as the modus operandi of every development aspect? Today, many African countries and even leaders of the world consider those who are on research, especially in the domain of politics and economics, as agents of propaganda, and why not at times trying to bring down the very system they have constructed. Remember some time ago we talked of the New Deal. When the leader of a republic made the mention of the New Deal had in its cupboards rigor and moralization.
Yeah.
And today Cameroonians are asking what has happened to rigor and what has become of the moralization standard of Cameroonians. If you get into that domain, a lot have written books on how we can get a country put its own fallen pieces into unity, how a country can rebuild from trash, in fact, from, how can I call, grass to grace. Today we mine a country where Cameroonians are unable to eat, and country where sometime in 1972, President Amadou Ahidjo launched the Operation Green Revolution. Green Revolution was not a political agenda, because after then Cameroonians realized that they could eat, drink, and why not? Fellow, and even export. We could assist countries like Israel, China, that we thought we were all, Singapore,
Malaysia,
and South Korea, that we were all at the same level at the time. But what has happened to the same standard set up some 40 years ago before the New Deal? What New Deal? Or was it just a political agenda to hypnotize and capture Cameroonians of the new leader who was said to be young, vibrant, and active enough? What activeness has it brought to Cameroonian? And at the end, we realize that rigor and moralization has become an agenda of the strong, the governed, against the less privileged, the weak class. And today we pay the price. President Paul Biya might have not been aware that in 1982, when he took power, Cameroonians were buying 11 cups of Gari for 100. And that as he took power 40 years after, research has not given us enough cassava again. And so we have 2 cups of Gari now for the same 100. What has happened?
Not even
to
2, doctor, not 2.
I guess let's get to the list, because you have some audience that will tell you that your statistics are not right. And I grew up as a young man to have made a system 8 years or 4 years after the late President Amadou Ahidjo. What has happened that Cameroonians are unable to eat? It is a failure in research, and putting the dots where research ended. Because today it is possible to grow chickens for 45 days and people can eat. So what has happened? That the price of chicken, we used to buy chicken for 1,150, and today they tell you that 2,300 and 3,000 is okay for a Cameroonian household. How much are their salaries? We cannot pay from what we don't generate. Before we pay salaries, the economy should be capable of generating an equivalent or almost above that amount. What has happened to research and development in Cameroon? Cameroonians have been thinking that the weaknesses faced by the economy are the failures put into the domain of education. Researchers, in fact, we even lament sometime in Yaoundé, those who are thought to be researchers were begging for recruitment. We're begging for employment from the state.
We'll be coming back to
what extent R&D has helped the economy
research and
still remains a very huge question mark.
Okay, Doctor, we'll be coming back to you. Before we dive straight into the topic in itself, we just have maybe two minutes on what has been making news across the nation within the week. I'll begin with you, Professor Innocent. Just within this week, we had the passing away of the chairman of the Social Democratic Front, that is John Fru Ndi, who has been active in the political scene since when we look at the period where before the reintroduction of multi-party politics, and many attribute the fact that the reintroduction of multi-party politics in the 90s was due to the pressure from the Social Democratic Front and also from the chairman John Fru Ndi, though this is still being contested by some members of the CPDM party and some who support the regime, that it wasn't Fru Ndi that put pressure as far as reintroduction of multi-party politics is concerned in the 90s. And we're also aware that Fru Ndi also made Cameroon to be talked about in 1992 during the 1992 presidential elections. When you learnt of the passing away of Chairman John Fru Ndi, what legacy or what do you have as far as his legacy is concerned?
In fact, Mr. Thomas Jarvis, I want to tell you that that was the darkest day in Cameroon history, because we had the father of Cameroon democracy passing on, the father of peace in this country passing on. Fru Ndi, he worked so hard to make sure that we had everything that we have today. If we are able to stand today and talk openly, it is because of John Fru Ndi. If we are capable of doing anything of any kind in this country today, it is because of the force that Fru Ndi put in place, and then the Cameroonians are able to have what you have today. Else, we had a system in place before and until 1990, the early 1990, 20 May 1990, that was in place just to stand on Cameroonians and make sure that nothing moved in this country. Well, but to a certain extent, they tried to stop Fru Ndi in the later days of his career. And that is when we started seeing things moving in the negative direction. Fru Ndi would have been a hero, though he is still a hero, but he would have been 100% hero if he would have not succumbed to the system. He was a fighter, and his passing on leaves a very, very much big gap for Cameroonians. We don't know exactly what the future holds, but I want to just believe that the next generation of the SDF will be able to dot the I's and cut the T's and make sure that the party is taken back to its real. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barrister Kujonako. Well, you learned the passing away of the chairman of the Social Democratic Front. We are looking at days after his passing away and what legacy you, as a political analyst and a political commentator, what legacy do you think Fru Ndi kept before departing, and how do you look at the future of the party after Fru Ndi?
Yeah, to be very brief, and one time, if we have to be honest, John Fru Ndi remains a statesman. He remains a man of integrity. He is one of those Cameroonians that gave a new light. They were those who fought for the return of multipartyism in Cameroon. A lot of fighters were jailed. Others were sent into places we can't tell today. John Fru Ndi himself suffered a lot of torments and again a lot of exacerbation from the system. Today, John Fru Ndi felt at the time when Cameroonians were thinking that he was supposed to stand again firm, because the system he fought to some extent might have not moved more than 2 centimeters. And we are talking of the multipartism system and the CNU being brandished, the CPDM, which still remains the lone party holding power, independence to today. And he will tell us that somewhere, some Cameroonians could imagine of power to the people, and that the power belongs to the people. Has the power really, before his demise, belonged to the people? What we can answer and what we know is that the power still remains with the central government. The power still remains with the ruling elite, and that some of those elites are still feeling that until they die, the other generations or other Cameroonians have no access to that same power. They have been doing everything possible to eliminate, to tussle, to even muscle those who think that political power is a shared issue and that others too have access to political power in Cameroon. We cannot imagine that 40 years ago, you still find the same friends, the same brothers, and even the same sisters holding the same offices they held more than 40 years now. Is it really the liberation we're fighting for is really the laws or the Declaration of Freedom, Liberties, that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, enshrined and to which Cameroon is a party. To what extent are other individuals' political opinion considered as part and parcel of ruling the nation, their criticisms, rather than looking at them as those who are fighting the state? John Fru Ndi fought very hard. Again, very silent. For the first time, Cameroonians were going to witness the changing at the chairman of the SDF when such a convention was called for next month, July. The chairman failed without seeing his own pick off. In fact, Barack Obama said, when you failed, one of the highest failure of a leader was failing to prepare those who take over after them. Should we say he failed in guaranteeing the leadership of his own very party he intended to handle? And why not? The highest legacy Cameroonians might be wishing or willing to find. Today, the SDF, which we have known, instead of fighting the opposition, is equally fighting the ruling party, is equally noticed within the ranks of intergovernmental inconveniences, which I mean, the executive of the SDF have become using the party for their own personal ends. Just saying, a lot were dismissed some few months ago. A lot, again, took on the petition against the same chairman without the process coming to an end. What legacy has the chairman left for Cameroon? What liberty have we enjoyed, even at the level of the SDF, which he fought hard to build? 1990, more than 47 members of parliament, and today, at the level of the Senate, no representative except the single-handed from Bali, appointed by the pen and the legacy of the sovereign, the president of the republic, as the SDF just become a shadow of the propaganda he has made. Yes, many concluded that they fought hard in 1990, but later compromised with the same system they were fighting, received a lot of envelopes, a lot of Dutch's condolence messages, to which many thought were all means of capturing the same opposition party. At the end of the day, he said, at the eve or the beginning of the Anglophone crisis, that if he was a young man, he would have equally had his own gun on his hand. The gun he refused in 1990 to use as a means of gaining political power, as his brain and his political wit for Cameroon simply be watered and diluted by durability in the same position he has held as the chairman of that party. The SDF, what becomes of it after the death of this hero, remains unnoticed. For we can give an account of today, but tomorrow no one can tell.
Thank you very much, Barrister Dr. Ako John Ako. That was it for this session. We will take on this transition, and when we come back, we will dive straight into our topic of today, where is the place of research in Cameroon's gross domestic product. And why not even the national, the NDP will also look at that, and also look at what is being done as far as effective decentralization is concerned within the research sector. Where we look at all these, we shall be focusing also on some of the plight from members of the Institute of Agricultural Research Development, Institute of Research and Agricultural Development. You're welcome back from that transition. I'll begin with you, Professor Nsah, on the topic of today, where we are looking at where is the place of research in Cameroon's gross domestic product. You are in the higher education family, and you have sent out a series of PhD fellows whom you have supervised as far as research is concerned. And when you look at the current situation of Cameroon's research, what will you make of it, drawing connection from what Professor Bernard Fonlon in his book titled The Genuine Intellectual One said that university without research facilities is more of a glorified secondary school. Are you happy when you look at the state institution currently now at the level of research that are being done? Do you think it's of quality, or do you think much is still to be done?
Thank you very much once more, Mr. Jarvis. Well, the universities, Cameroon universities are doing the best. The researchers, because of the fact that they were actually trained as researchers they are doing their jobs. The unfortunate thing is that we do not have enough capacity to carry out research to the fullest. But I am not here by saying that we are not actually carrying out research. We do carry out research. A lot of research work has been carried out and published. When you look at me, for example, sitting here, for example, you can have more than about 50 articles that are published in international journals based on research work. Some of my friends have done even more than that. The unfortunate thing is that these works have never, ever been used by the authorities that be. In most the advanced countries of the world, these research works normally are presented to Parliament, and Parliament has to make sure that these works are implemented. Unfortunately, in Cameroon, we have parliamentarians who do not have a clue, who do not have a knowledge of what research is all about. They are just mere politicians. Some of them don't even know what it means when we say that research can influence the GDP of a country. Do they even know what GDP is all about? Do they even know what GDP is all about? Do they even know what they call government spending? Do they even know what they call consumer spending? Do they even know what they call investment in maybe the private sector and even the public sector? Nothing. To them, like what my learned colleague here, Dr. Akeba was trying to analyze there, most of the thing of the individual stomachs. And so when it comes to carrying out research work, think of research work as a means to try to increase the aspect of technological capabilities of the nation, of trying to increase resource use, and then also trying to make sure that resource efficiency is put in place. This is nothing to them. What they think about is simply, what do I have to eat today? Let me tell you, just recently, in my institution here, we had the students of the automobile department, even those of fishery. They were able to construct a boat, like fishery, for example. There was a kind of car that was assembled at the National Polytechnic Institute here. This shows the potentials that these people have. But then, who is there to promote them? We want to be consumers. And let me tell you, when it comes to the GDP, for example, there's what they call export and import. When you look at that equation, for example, research and development will say GDP equal to the consumer spending plus total investment, that has to be the private, the public, and then now plus government spending, then plus what you call the export minus import, for example. You find out that that particular last factor, that particular last factor makes that equation not an equation again, but an inequality, because we spend a lot importing than exporting. Why are we not exporting? Because of the fact that we fail to make use of research that the researchers are actually carrying on in the field, and the results are there. They are not applied. Do you know that a company like Cedrick in Bonabiri, for example, import all the tomatoes from China? Do you know that even Alam grain in Bonabiri, not in Bonabiri, at Bikoko, for example, they import their maize grains from abroad, India and all the like? How many of these companies that are in Cameroon, for example, make use of what is produced in Cameroon? This is because of the fact that there's absence of research when it comes to the aspect of quality, for example, when it comes to promoting agricultural development in Cameroon, for example, when it comes to industrial development, for example. But we, the Cameroonians, who have the capabilities. I know somebody will say that the head of state is, well, that's a very good effort that he's making. It's an old man, but there are people there to implement those policies of the head of state. Are they doing this job? The money is taken and they put it in the individual stomachs. And that is why we find ourselves the way we are today. So though it is a very good concept that research and development leads to economic growth of any nation, in Cameroon we see this as a strange assertion, because of the fact that the political power that be has failed to put that particular very, very important activity into action. And that is where we are today. Like my brother was just saying, that 40 years in power, and it's like we have taken the country 40 years behind. There's no innovation, there's nothing. And that is where we find ourselves where we are today. Let me tell you, Mr. Tamajev, before you cut me short here, some years ago, about 8 years ago, is this 7 to 8 years ago, the students of the University of Boya, of course they won all the prizes when it came to university competition in terms of research, What do you see today, like the modern toll gates, the contract given to the French people, not even to Cameroonians? That was research work that was presented by the students of the Faculty of Engineering and Technology of the University of Buea. They won here at the University of Douala. They went to Yaoundé and they still won again. That's when University of Buea won all the 20 prizes.
That's 7, 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years
exactly, ago. They won all the prizes. Why can't the government trust their own people? Why didn't they give them the chance to implement this project? We want to give them the French people. They come implement the whole thing. 17 years after, for the hand back to the
30
people.
30 years. There's a modern toll gate which is
complete nonsense.
Constructed along the Buea Highway Road, a few meters from the auto gate. I'm sure that is some years.
It looks terrible. It looks terrible. How much are we going to lose to the French people? How shall we create employment? How shall we reduce what you call, or what increase what they call the consumer spending, for example? Shall we be able to do that? So that's what we find ourselves.
So this research was actually conducted
from
the University of Buea.
The University of Buea. I was part of the first batch of those of that particular promotion of University of Buea. So I was present. But then the current Minister for Education, Basic Education, is it Basic Education, Secondary Education? She was the Chancellor.
Yes, the current Minister of
Professor Naloba.
Yeah, Professor Naloba was the Vice Chancellor.
She was the Vice Chancellor. These students, they won all the prizes. They have proven, even here in my school, for example, there are people that are very competent. They can do more than enough.
In University of Douala.
University of Douala. They have the potentials. But then, there's nobody to motivate them.
Prof, I want to find out this. Every July, August, or depending on the institution, we keep witnessing defense from either master's level or PhD level. And we keep seeing journals being produced by doctors and professors. The question now is, where are all these documents kept? And secondly, you said they are being published. Where are they being kept? Are they being kept at the library? If they are being kept at the library, what effort is being made to actually pragmatize or make use of this research? A case in hand is one of the research which was done. I'm sure you are the supervisor of that PhD who did a research about the pollution and also the danger of having some of these fuel stations across Douala.
Exactly.
And which the danger is that if there is an explosion in one of these stations, it will cause a great effect across the city, looking at the populated nature of the city.
Exactly. Let me tell you.
So what is being done with all this research work? Are we just using it for entertainment?
It's not actually for entertainment, Mr. Tamar Jarvis. The city mayor, for example, recently organized a kind of, I don't know exactly what he was doing there. If you come there, you will present all the information. They're just happy to see that. But then, nothing is applied. Let me tell you, if SDP explodes, if it explodes today, especially at the time that the government is trying to engage himself in left and right fighting terrorists, if those people have to manage and enter Douala and explode the SDP, all of Douala is finished. All of Douala is finished. From the modeling that we've carried out so far, for example.
That's dangerous.
Yes, and then again, we don't even have roads. Just imagine when you have a lot of traffic jam along the road leading to Mbofi Market. Think about the road leading to Flourish, for example. Think of the road leading to Bonaberi. When there's what they call the domino effect takes place. Boom! The market is taken. Even along the road network, for example, all the vehicles, because they are rich in fuel, for example, they will take everything and all the oil will finish completely. So when we carry out research of that nature, and then I think that one weakness as of now is that we have not yet invited the city mayor and some of the authorities in place to talk to them about this very powerful research. It was last year that my student defended that doctorate degree program. But then there's a kind of, we find ourselves somehow discouraged because there are lots of other important research that have been carried out in this country and there is nobody to implement them totally.
Okay.
That is it.
We're coming back to you. Barrister, Dr. Ako Jonako. I want to ask you this question. When we look at, you are the higher education family, and vis-a-vis also, you are also versed with some of the agricultural policies being put in place. What is being done by the state or also by some of these institutions in order to pragmatize some of the research work carried out by PhD fellows and master's students? Because if we look at the current situation, the same thing I asked Professor Innocent, we have a lot of good topics from engineering, from economics, from history, from anthropology, from journalism. Day in, day out, we see hate speech at the level of journalism. Research is being done. Day in, day out, we see distorted facts at the level of historical perspective. Day in, day out, we see economic facts being misinterpreted. Day in, day out, like you talk about the green revolution, the worst is even the level of productivity in terms of agricultural product. As we speak, the colocasia, what is called Igbo cocoa, in locally called, has disappeared in some localities. In fact, our researchers are not bothered. If this happens to be a great production, food consumption within the area of the southwest and the nation in itself, colocasia, it has totally disappeared. Yes. We are experiencing now another one with maize, where we are having the black beetles, which is consuming maize. And maize constitutes close to 70 to 80% of our consumption. Now, if we look at all this, are we not in danger here? First question, let me summarize it. What makes it difficult to pragmatize this research work being done? Second, when we look at now the aspect of the other food crisis that we have, what are researchers doing?
Mr. Tama, you know, sometime I said the problems plaguing the nation are found in various domains. And the fact that the nation has not been capable of advancing in itself indicates that the diseases that are eating the nation are within the same nation. It means that governance, others will tell you that governance remains a problem in Cameroon. I want to tell you something. Before the creation of the University of Cham, there was a school of agronomy and agricultural development. Before then and now, we have International Institute for Research and Agricultural Development. Again, that has been brandished and given another name with a different directorate. Today we have in Cameroon School of Agriculture that were not existing in various state universities.
And even private.
And the shocking truth is that against the backdrop of all these institutions, is the highest time Cameroonians are going hungry. Nobody can deny that. At the time we have only the School of Agronomy in Cham, we could eat well. With all the multiplicity, I've forgotten about the School of Forestry and Wildlife based in somewhere in Bamayo. The whole setup to manage the forest. It is still the highest time where we have indiscriminate cutting of trees, even without licenses.
We have the Institute of Agricultural Research and Development, 5 geopolitical zones.
That is what I'm saying.
Excellent.
They were not even existing. Cameroonians were living well and eating well. Cassava was abundant. Red oil was available. A liter of red oil, for those who are not aware, was 150 francs. We bought it in the market.
But today the
highest is 200.
Doctor, just so you continue, let me just cue you in. When you talk about the research, we have 5 geopolitical zones in terms of Iraq. Okay. Now the first is Gandere Zone 2, we have Bambui Zone 3, we have Ekona Zone 4, we have Bamayo Zone 5. These are Institute of Research and Agricultural Development.
Iraq, under Iraq.
Are they even equipped?
So, one of the things that we try to find out, for what purpose, if not for political gains. Those who are friends to the political team, to be awarded after a brilliant result in their various regions. These are what the institutions have been reduced to. Those who have been nominated or appointed directors of the School of Agronomy, School of Agriculture, School of Dress, Faculty of, what has become of them? Even they have been centers.
Chief of Station.
Chief of Station. One of the things I begin to see is that Cameroon has the ability, theoretically, to create institutions, but has no ability to evaluate the efficacy of those institutions.
It's a formality.
What have they served the nation? If studies carried out and Bamayo has not improved the quality of our forest, meaning bringing in new breed of trees that are adapted, instead of trees to cover shelter for sun, which we see today, Operation 1 million trees. And they ask you, for what purpose is that tree of economic importance? Because if a forest tree cannot create value to the community, why do we even plant it? We are in a country where everything must be economically oriented. For what nature? Is it improving the fertility of the soil? For what purpose? And which trees are they going to depend on the fertility in which that tree is generating? Meaning there should be a subsidiary to the main program. For what economic benefit? But what do we do? NGOs, organizations, the government, they embark on planting of trees to call international attention and lobby for funding. Okay, and when the funds come in, what do we do with the funds? A lot of research in Cameroon is cupboard research. Cupboard research, in the past, it used to be announced over the national and international media that there would be a PhD thesis today at the university of this. It was a state issue. It was the duty of the Minister of Higher Education to announce all PhDs being published yearly. But today, they are done as a personal family affair. At times, even some departments in the university are not even aware that PhD defense is going on today.
Very correct.
The public nature of a PhD defense gives you at times the usefulness, if not to the community, if not to the village, but even within the scholarly network within the same university. Some don't even notice it. Yes, you are in the domain. Some of us carry out the legal implication of environmental pollution along the Gulf of Guinea. It is my domain. When I see people doubting whether they should construct gutters, and you ask, people will ask you, what is the raison d'etre of canalizing waters in Douala? If we know the importance of canalization of upstream waters, we know the importance of what it will equally generate to the nation. When I sat and I look at what is going on around Carrefour, Cité des Palmiers, and even somewhere around Sable Bonamoussadi, that when we were talking that there's a need to canalize water, the council did not see the importance that those areas may tomorrow serve as green zones where people can develop scenery for just leisure.
Yes.
And leisure, 200 francs goes to the council. And when people just sit resting, you pay your 200, you sit. Those who have their money create small bars and small snacks, small games for kids. The economic interest behind that. Nobody ever realized that if we spend 11 billion to canalize streams and gutters in Douala, the economic impact is for a lifetime.
Yeah. Exactly why.
Nobody knows of environmental insurance, which all of us are victims. Environmental insurance is that everything we do has an impact on the environment. Just your pool, you have a right to pay just 200 francs within the tax you are collected, and that tax should be directed towards maintaining the quality of the environment. Nobody's aware. They are written there. Brilliant things Cameroonians have written. I'm telling you.
They are the level of the cupboard.
The thing is
cupboard research. And one, please, Prof, you realize that the ministry is not even interested whether research
very good
is contributing.
boy. That is it.
The question we have asked. I asked this question on what they call the White Book of Higher Education in Cameroon. The new program, HND, MBD, Bachelor, whatsoever. DDP. They have given them wonderful names.
Doctor of Business Administration.
And I asked, what is the relationship between academics and the professional world? What is the link between academics and the need of the economy? If you want to create a school of agriculture, there should be a direct link between the educational centers and the actors in agriculture. We don't just carry out research. Maybe people are not aware that what you call iPhone 10, iPhone 15, Samsung 1, Samsung, they are research carried out in various laboratories. And telling them that today we can improve, and the next one will be Pro Max, and another one will be HyperX, whatsoever. This one will be Spiral, this will be Skyrocket. This is research. What happened? Those companies pay for the research. At times it's not even the government. Apple pay heavily for research. And yet somewhere when you watch National Geo, you realize that we have a weakness in all domains. Some people have generated rats that are capable of fighting the rats in the house.
Yeah.
Meaning through research, a lot of anti-rats fighters, you invent another environment and you chase instead the wicked rat from your homes.
Very good.
Which ratization is a problem in towns like Douala.
A very big problem.
This is a common problem which can be resolved. I saw research in somewhere around France, people got into trying to grow up butterflies. Some people's research is how to multiply the number of butterflies.
Even growing bacteria.
Good. And then you sit here and ask, maybe, what is really the use of butterflies? We have sat somewhere and see how whites are fighting to grow the number of honeybees. He's not talking of the bee oil. He's talking of honeybees. How can we multiply them? They have a direct impact with agriculture. If your agricultural land need to produce enormously, one of the greatest actors we need is a butterfly and a bee. But how do we know? We even burn them.
Exactly.
We burn them quietly. When they are your enemies in your farm, you just set fire and burn them. Are we even educated?
So honey, the day for this size, will kill them.
Yes!
Doctor, I think that to a certain extent, this country is being led by either those that do not like it or those that are qualified to be where they are supposed to be. Because we take the case of the Minister of Environment.
Prof, you know I don't like eating words. When you talk like that, it should not be like you don't know the truth. The fact is that we are governed by those who are not aware of what they are supposed to do.
Exactly.
When you take a medical doctor and send him in the domain of geography,
exactly.
When you carry somebody who is not even a technocrat in a particular domain and put him in a hole that is not well fitted, what results do you intend? Imagine somebody who has never done civil engineering to become a public work minister. What quality do you want in productivity? Somebody that has not studied finance, becoming the minister of finance. What financial operation do we intend to have? So somewhere, the state has failed to create an institution. French people will tell you, encadre, the future of the nation in various domains. In every domain of education and at the level of the Ministry of Higher Education, there's supposed to be somebody in charge of specific domains, which are priority domains. Meaning that you have director in charge of information and technology, information and telecommunication technology. We need to have somebody of that nature. Agricultural development, the moment there's a thesis, you pick it over. What can government benefit from this?
Exactly.
That's what is going on in
the government is supposed to send people to go there and live in a
domain. There's a commission for that. And we should see the results just decide. Yeah, we can program it. Somebody said long-term development in 30 years' time. Why not? By 15 years after, we should be capable of evaluating what the research has given.
Yes.
I said, Americans and most advanced state, please, they will tell you that there is no need for a research topic if it cannot add value
exactly
to the environment in which it is found.
Exactly, boy.
And so, people who ask you whether the topic is researchable or is significant enough in the environment in which it is.
The importance of the research.
Importance of the research.
To the nation.
To the nation, to the people around.
Exactly.
If you cannot have, at times some go in other domains, they get into monetary aspect even. Some research calculate the monetary aspect or economic benefit in the next 10 years. If this is done, this is a real Cameroon and the government, professors, lecturers, teachers in primary and secondary education, they are aware of the output of every domain.
Okay.
Somewhere,
let me just take.
Nelson Mandela once told us that to kill a nation does not take any atomic bomb or a missile. Rappel them and confuse them with the system of education.
We're coming back to you guys. Good afternoon, Mr. Jarvis. I think the government of Cameroon don't even trust their product that they train. Mr. Jarvis, this part HND defense in the biomedical department, a student carried out a research on the outbreak of cholera in Bonas Yaoundé and came out with good facts on it and warned that there might be an outbreak of cholera in that area, but the government did not take it serious. Few weeks later, the first case was recognized there and started spreading. If the government can pay much attention on the research, especially on what they are doing, this country will become more better than what it is today. Mr. Lobe, writing from Yaoundé. This other one reads, good work, Mr. Jarvis. Research needs real and sincere funding. Researchers cannot carry out research or solve problems with their bare hands and brains. They need money. Also, the many MSc and PhD research in the libraries should be exploited by establishing units that will use the results to produce models or apply it and even to commercialize it. Thank you very much. This other one reads, it says, happy Happy Sunday, great program and quite very educative. Thank you very much, Dr. Ako, John Ako, and Professor Innocent. It is an educative program. I am really enjoying it. I am an MSc student in Boya. Thank you very much. Though you did not give us your name, let's continue on this on the program. Professor Innocent, you wanted to say something when Barrister Ako was talking. Then I asked you my question.
Yes. Thank you so much for giving us that opportunity. You know, come on, it is not because our country is ignorant of research results. They know this so well. If you take the COP, the Conference of the Parties, the most recent one, Cameroon has been sending delegates there. They know exactly the importance of carbon dioxide emissions in our forest. But yet, you see the rate of deforestation is increasing at a very high rate. But then, there's nothing like afforestation. There's nothing like reforestation taking place in Cameroon here. I want to support what Dr. Ako is talking about there. They will have the School of Forestry. Doesn't mean that the government cannot invest in that particular sector. That is when I'm talking about, we are still on the GDP. Because that's a function, that's one of the parameters that make up the GDP. Government can't invest in that particular direction there. What makes government incapable of investing in a particular direction? To carry out a forestation project in this country here. Just take the lake in Yaoundé. That lake behind the Minister of Secondary Education, for example, is there not the Minister of Environment, in that particular environment? They can transform it into a paradise. They can create jobs for Cameroonians there. You can create a recreational site in that particular area. People pay a lot of money there. There can be an income to the government.
Yeah, that's what Dr. Ako was saying.
Does the government even try to evaluate all the ministerial sectors to know exactly their contribution to GDP each year? What is Cameroon GDP, Mr. Tamajav? Do you have an idea? I saw somebody talk about 3.5%. That's a lie. If you can take into consideration the intangible aspect of our environment,
for
the carbon dioxide emissions.
By, the presidency at the time, that was last year or so, it was around 3.4 or something like that.
Yeah, it's 3.5, but that's not correct. If you can take into consideration the environmental aspects, the negative environmental impacts of our country, and then you input that into the GDP, you say Cameroon is at a negative. We are not anywhere positive. Because the environment is in constant destruction every day of every year. And I want to tell you, I want to assure you, before long, not even before long, the next generation of this country will suffer. Especially when the next, perhaps 8% of the Cameroon forest would have been totally degraded. The Cameroon biocapacity, as of now, that was formerly about 80%, so many years ago, is now at barely 8%. And people are watching. They attend the conference of the parties. They know everything about the environment, but they are not doing anything. Then do you think it will be local researchers that will actually carry out this job and the government will recognize it? We think we need somebody at the top of this country that has an idea about all the different sectors, who has an idea about all the negative impacts on our GDP, and then do everything possible that these things are corrected so that we may have a positive GDP. Thank you.
Prof, how do we understand this? I'll come to Doctor. That we have the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation.
Yeah.
And yet, when COVID-19 came, we bought chloroquine from other countries and we didn't have enough research as to how to combat it. How do we explain that we have the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation? At a time when we are expecting to have several fundings at the Institute of Agricultural Research and Innovation, instead the fundings is decreasing. How do we explain the fact that we have the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation, and yet we are unable to have healthy products that can be consumed in terms of helping us to meet up with some of the challenges that we have? Let me take, for example, when we had the recent outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, the Russian crisis also came at the time. We had problem of food. Now, we are now looking at the fact that some researchers are of the opinion that wheat can actually grow, in fact, succeed in Cameroon. But we have a Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation. We keep blaming the Russia invasion to say because we don't have wheat, and that is a problem. And now we are also having an issue. I'll ask Dr. Ako this. We are also having an issue of fuel crisis. And it has now been proven that it was thanks to the subsidies being given by Nigerian government on petroleum sector in Nigeria that we had fuels in Cameroon. And now Tinubu Bola Ahmed, aka Jagaban, have taken away these fuel subsidies, we're having shortage of fuel in Cameroon.
Exactly.
So these are issues that we did not understand. But summarily, my question to you now is, what is the impact of this Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation with the 5 geopolitical zones of Institute of Agricultural Research and Innovation, yet Cameroonians are even starving more than they should have been? And also the impact of COVID-19 came, we could not generate research that we could actually say this is what we did during COVID-19 from the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation.
Well, that's a very difficult question for me to answer, because I do not know exactly how she's carrying out her administration with regard to research and development in this country. Because under normal condition, a minister of that caliber and occupying that kind of position would have been the first to come in and maybe invite the researchers to sit down under a particular situation to say, let's see what we can do in order to stop this particular situation here. But at the local level, from what I know, is that Cameroon is fed with a lot of potentials. You talk about the case of COVID-19, for example. I want to tell that we have traditional doctors in this country that can solve that problem very easily. So I've been seeing them. If I take the case of Dr. Fru, for example.
How much was even disbursed by this same ministry?
Nothing was disbursed.
Fimbagrass, all we were told was Fimbagrass.
Fimbagrass is nothing. If I tell you what Dr. Fru knows, I have seen his laboratories. We had seminars, Mr. Thomas Jarvis. We had seminars. We had seminars with Dr. Fru, with my colleagues, professors in the field of medicines. And this guy is not just talking about how you take plants to mix this and that to make them solve that particular problem. That man has his own chemical formula that he's using.
Well-equipped lab.
He has an equipped laboratory. He knows, in fact, about 80% of the plants, for example, he knows the chemical composition. And the more to that, this guy knows exactly the human anatomy. He knows exactly what this particular plant, what the juice from that particular plant can do to a particular patient to keep the person out of that particular ailment. I watch his presentations. So there are many more. But why can't the minister assemble people of that nature when we have a crisis situation of that particular nature to solve the problem? Now we talk about the food crisis. Do you think that we don't have professors in this country? Not even professors. We should be talking about professors. There are people, just local farmers. Where I have my farm, for example, at Linge, in the Mungo there, we have local farmers that use, let me tell you, my goods almost spoiled. Everything got bad. But local farmers came, they told me, Prof, please, you can use this thing like this, just mixing local things in the farm, and then I saw that everything was coming back to normal. Even think about the corn, for example. My corn was almost destroyed.
Yeah, we have now the black beetles. Last week
those black beetles. But the local guys in that particular area are capable of coming up with a kind of a pesticide which is not destructive. It doesn't move upstream.
Yeah, organic pesticide.
Yes, it is made by local farmers. That's why sometimes you got to talk about the local response mechanisms. We don't even make use of these farmers.
Professor Justin, in the presentation last week, said one of the strong researchers, first researchers are farmers.
Exactly. When you are very close to them, you learn a lot of things. And that is what I'm learning now. And then again now, you see, when we start blaming researchers, we start blaming perhaps professors and whatever thing, it is wrong. I think our biggest problem in this country is total lack of motivation from the authorities that be. The political power in this country have hijacked everything from all the sectors of this country. And that's why we are stagnated. Let me tell you, Cameroon can do everything. We have intellectuals. I have visited most universities in this country where I studied, for example. Cameroonians are always the best. Let me tell you, Mr. Thomas Jarvis, you are intellectual. If you leave this country, you will know that you are excellent. You do not know that. But in this country, they wrap you and put you into the mud.
We have trivialized intellectualism.
Yes.
And now maybe not to be genuine. As
I mean, even our students, let me tell you, our students have wonderful potentials. Even potential that even we, the professors, don't even have. They're very intelligent. But then there's no means, nobody is there to motivate them. That is true. If you have good laboratories in this country, where students can go in, and then they try to discover things from themselves, you will see what these children have, what they can fabricate. Okay. Sometimes you can find students trying to, local children, class 1, 2, 3, 4 children in the primary school, they were making helicopters and they were flying in the air. Are they professors
people who are not even mechanical engineers?
Yes.
Who have not gone to university.
Exactly.
But they have made drones. And sometimes professors who have gone that cannot know the theory, know how the trajectory, know from this distance.
Exactly. Government doesn't do that. We invest in wars. And that is, I'm talking about one of the parameters of the GDP of this country. Government investment. We invest in war, but we are not investing in those activities that can lead to the growth of our GDP.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Ta. Laxity to implement research work is not unique to Cameroon. A country that is highly politicized can never be interested in research work. The researchers should actively engage the politicians if they want things to change. Implementation of research work should be taken should be taken as another area of research. Thank you, Quine Jacob, writing from Kombu. Max from Germany. Max from Germany is one of our panelists who is in Düsseldorf, Germany. Happy Sunday to you, Max. We want to wish you a very happy Sunday. He writes, he says, hello, Mr. Jarvis. Hello to the great minds in the studio. We are talking of research, and I hope many are those of us who were aware of our minister of that department before COVID-19. At the end of the fight against COVID-19, which has been to me the only homework of the minister, rather they ran abroad to buy drugs. Maybe Madam Minister should tell us how far she has come with implementing the program of the head of state as far as the ministry is concerned.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Max from Germany. That is a good question. Good afternoon, sir, and to all the panelists. I am enjoying the program. It is very educative. Onella watching from Chang. Thank you very much, Onella from Chang. I want to ask you this question, Dr. Barrister Ako, John Ako, before you react, or maybe you react to some of the things for asking my question.
Yeah, one, you were asking whether the government or research, why are we not taking such research important, and especially relating to the COVID pandemic. I want you to understand that the COVID, first of all, the fight against COVID was more of national and international scam, and a lot of government fell within it. That even what we could do at home was neglected in order to lobby for foreign funding. And again, when the foreign funding came, we have a whole COVID gate. We are still waiting in Cameroon. So you ask yourself, was it really worth fighting for COVID gate, for COVID vaccines? A lot of people gave money, Jack Ma and the Bill Gates, they gave money to help Africa and the didactic materials for free. Some of those materials that were destined for Africa stayed in private pharmacies.
Doctor, bags of rice were given
to fight COVID?
To fight COVID. As we speak, we don't know where and how, who took them, who distributed them, where did they distribute them, and how can it be accounted for?
That is where we come back to governance. The governance, I told you at the very beginning, that we have a governance problem. I want to tell you again somewhere where the Cameroonian political system erred with the research of Professor Victor Nambangu. Somebody who is a clerical, standard researcher, one of international nature, told Cameroonians that HIV/AIDS can be cured. Cameroon called for an international conference to validate his own research. And so we waited for international community to validate before we accept. So since the international community did not validate, then its usefulness to Cameroon was a propaganda. We heard of the Cleda, Vid, Monseigneur Cleda, told us that COVID could simply be handled by common herbs, and that is serving it.
That is it.
And many people, if not of what I call the financial warrior of the Beti people, the Bulu people, now presently in Kondengi, whom gave close to 25 million to encourage Cleda to go ahead with the production. The government in itself never thought encouraging.
They want to get
At times, when you ask yourself, when you look at members of government entirely, ask them what we eat, ask them what they wear, will define if they really support what comes from Cameroon. A lot of people still believe in a shirt they bought in Paris while on a visit. People still believe in that suit that they brought the last time they were in California. But then, do you know the idea about other nations get around us with Nigeria? The day I saw inauguration of Tinubu and it's
Shetima.
No, I mean the outgoing president.
Okay,
yes. They had the same and similar regalia. Those things are not commanded by the Christian Doyne or the Kevin Klein or the Dulce and Gabbana in Europe, they were locally
made
by Nigerians.
That is why we have the difference.
To tell you the economic mindset of different group of persons.
Maybe what we are putting on today now, Doctor.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I don't. We might not start with ourselves. When I've told people that today I feel at ease appearing on a TV program than an African regalia than the suit from the West. In one part, you contribute to that. You contribute to the development of that domain. And so it will not serve us a purpose to put clothing and design in universities and then you pass on purchasing suits, billions from abroad. What do we do of the people we have trained? That is the mind. That is the mind. Yes, rice from Dub. It's not nice rice. They have all the names I've given to the rice from Dub. You command rice from Pakistan.
That is it.
Indian rice. This idea, in fact, somewhere, like you said, Ramaphosa went to beg for an open corridor in the Black Sea.
Yes, for wheat to
for wheat and cereal to come to Africa. And you look at Africa. Africa in Europe and America is looked at as a continent made at the mercy of the whole world.
And they made us understand that the war in Ukraine, Africa will starve.
Even the COVID, we were supposed to die as they say ants. But surprisingly, we did not die. Some even had a belief that in some governments in Africa, there was even no COVID. It was just common cough. In Africa, we have cough throughout the year. People interpreted it for COVID. And that is the fever grass and many other herbs we have around, which Gleda put together. Yes. So please, Mr. Jarvis, do we really believe in our own?
We don't.
Even when it's coming from laboratories and schools. I just want us to get very shortly with the crisis on importation of frozen chicken from abroad. I don't know whether you notice the struggle between private owners of poultry farms and the giant Kojekam. It was a still battle. Kojekam believed that the market or what is produced at home cannot take care of the market, and that there's still a need to bring frozen chicken from abroad. Chicken industry in Cameroon today, I will tell you confidently that it's one of the most successful, which means that somewhere government rules in controlling and rejecting foreign imported frozen fish and meat has promoted home production. We now eat local chicken from the market. At 2,500, 3,000, you have a chicken. You go now on the kilos, what do they do? When it comes from abroad, they tell you the kilo is 1, 2. This is a system they use. We call it dumping. They bring in force into the economy to an extent that you know that the one consumed home is more expensive.
But even, Doctor, what is the quality of those things that they're importing from abroad?
Okay,
those are the things.
Doctor,
please, let me come shortly.
Yes,
please,
I'll ask you my question.
When our products go to Europe, they hail them.
That's organic.
When African products find themselves in the European market, first with bananas, they will say that they are unadulterated. And that is what is good for human health. When they come here, they reverse the story. And what happened? They know that the common man in Africa has no information about the flow of these things. Yesterday, palm oil was a bad product. Today, thank God, the research optics on social media is changing. That palm oil is the best. Because where a lot of companies abroad are relocating in Africa to generate palm oil.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I'll be coming back to you to ask my question. Good morning, Jarvis. Thanks for bringing up the core of our development. Many research results are stacked in cupboards all over the centers. No way forward due to political bad faith and ignorance. The researchers need technicians to produce their works. Where are the workshops? Nobody think of that. We have a long way to go. Thank you very much. This one writes Masu from Boya. He says, greetings, Dr. John. Greetings to the other panelists. That is Professor Innocent. You people make my day in your wonderful outing. That is a young man from Kumbo making the best tricycle, motorcycle, a young IDP from Bamenda makes planes, tractors, etc. Who will promote them? I prefer the Mexican road than to be in Cameroon. I cry my beloved country. I suffer. My children are suffering. The names I heard from class 7 are still in power today. Masu from Boya. This other one, right, it says, Mr. Jarvis, tell the public to stop blaming researchers, especially the agri-researchers, because they are not motivated. They are not funded. Look at the budget of the Ministry of Research and Innovation. It is one of the least in Cameroon. Please, no attention to agri-research, no modernization to the agri-sector. And that landed me to the question I wanted to ask Dr. Akojonako. Doctor, I want us to look at this thing empirically and also scientifically. First question, Doctor, to you is that you, in your introduction, your commentary, you talked about the fact that we had just one agro school in Cameroon at the time in Chang, and yet we were eating enough and we were exporting. And that time, we did not have a lot of research centers. And just when we think that maybe our population has increased and there is need for production of food, 5 research centers, Institute of Research and Agricultural Development, known as IRAD, have been created so far. The first one is the head office of IRAD is in Yaoundé. The first research zone we have is Gaoundéré. The second is Bui. The third, Ekona. The fourth is Mbamayo. Now, in this research, we have research centers and directors. Now, when we look at the budget, and this is under the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation, the budget, as we speak, always alternates between 9 billion to 16 billion. If you look at Cameroon budgetary allocation and the place of ministry, you see that this amount is less significant as compared to that of defense, as compared to that of the Secretary General, the Presidency of the Republic, as compared to that of the Prime Minister, as compared to that of communication, as compared to also that of other ministries. But when we are talking about the fact that agriculture is the backbone of every economy, are we just saying this to entertain the public? And secondly, who is even eating this money of research in the Ministry of Research and Innovation? Because, so to speak, do you know, Doctor, that the chief of center in any of these research areas, let me just go, for example, randomly, in Ekona, because of the crisis, people have been there working. But yet, if you have to do a business that happens to deal with 5 million grants, you have to be moving to Yaoundé, to and fro. These people don't even have budget at the different research centers. And we're talking about decentralization. What are we decentralizing?
Yeah, I don't want us to get to be more political, because when you ask what are we decentralizing, you might be drifting off what we are here. You are talking of the multiplicity of research centers.
Research center, but there's no food, and funding is not even being given.
And the funding being given. Somewhere when you go to how state budget is being drafted, you will realize that every ministry draft his budget according to needs of the ministry. The government has never put anybody, executive power presents the budgetary year per ministry, and every ministry has its burden. When you present your burden, it is on that basis that the state or the Minister of Finance try judging every year whether there are fundings for that. But now when you find ministries that maybe they are not even aware of what they create. Somewhere I want to take you, you are talking of research, Ministry of Research and Scientific Development, and when you take a ministry like that of tourism, whose budget is about 4 billion, then you make a cruise line. I want to take you to a country like Kenya, where the Minister of Tourism has the highest budget.
Yes.
Can you imagine the significance of what I'm saying? That if we don't value the domain, we don't put asset or force to it. That is what happens in Cameroon. The highest issue in Cameroon since I was born is defense. And at the beginning I used to ask, what are they preparing to fight? Who are they trying to fight?
That is the point.
Why put so much budget on defense? In every nation that is positive in mindset, we have education, we have agriculture, somewhere research and development. Others call somewhere there are ministries in charge of IT. There are some countries that have made IT, which is a new development, as an independent domain of the state. And there, the moment the ministry is created, there is a need to evaluate the outcome. You don't just create ministries like we have here. We might have started with 36 or 24. Today we have over 65. What reason. What are the returns? The Ministry of Scientific Development, we should equally know that his need is to finance development, at times not to develop it. Because there's another ministry in charge of the development of what has been researched. If it's found in the domain of health, then the person in charge of the implementation of the development aspect of the development aspect of the research is at the Ministry of Public Health. And so we don't expect budget for financing research to come from the Ministry of Scientific Research. If it is the domain of agriculture, the Ministry of Scientific Development finance the research, and once the results are made, the implementation option of such a research is found at the Ministry of Agriculture. This, we should make it. The Ministry in charge of Wildlife and Forestry is in charge of implementing research outcome in the domain of forestry. Do they even correlate for these things to exist?
That is the question.
They don't.
And that is where you ask whether the government we have is a sleeping dormant or an active government.
Doctor, do they prepare consumption budgets or investment budgets? I don't know exactly the kind of budget they're preparing. Because
that is what I'm telling you now.
You don't even see the outcome. What do they actually...
We don't need outcome. We don't evaluate in Cameroon.
We don't evaluate?
The moment you do evaluate, I said the needs of what we call the budget of the year are the needs of the various ministry. They simply draft them, channel them, bring them in one, and Parliament votes. And you know our Parliament. I want to tell you something very clear. Visibility studies on a lot of structures and roads is in the same budget every year, even when it has been conducted 5 years ago. And we are aware.
How do they calculate the GDP?
Budget.
How does this country calculate GDP?
No, the growth rate.
How do they calculate GDP?
They want to see how far they are growing. I mean, what value they have added.
How do they value? How do they measure
but even at that, doctor and prof and doctor, we've still not have the result of the last census carried out, published officially in Cameroon. We are talking about a census that was done almost 10 years ago or plus.
Yeah, one of the things, what I'm telling you is that when we have a dormant system, in fact, somewhere in Uganda, there was a video circulating that members of parliament have slept again. In a parliament where people don't care about what we are talking, what are they waiting? They're waiting on financial, the budget of the mission to parliament for that session. That's exactly what happened even in Cameroon, where we moved to Yaoundé for a session of November, October, or March. People are waiting at the end. There is the mission order. Has it been financed? Whether it's 5 million that they should give me, let me go. So what happened? All bills tabled before the parliament always have a positive pass. Well done. Who has evaluated that Kumbamanthe Road, the Manthe Babanji Road, the feasibility studies, has it been stripped up the budget? How many people have that time to even go through perusing the budget? What have we created? A positive impact. It's just like I'm saying here. Somewhere I will not go without saying. Who has not carried research to tell Cameroonians that to reduce the number of death on the Douala-Yaoundé highway, that an autoroute is an emergency? Which research has not indicated that? But do you know how we got?
Do we even need research to do that?
Yes, let's consider research. It was done already. Because if not, it would have come within the economic aspect and the budget. The burden it is on taxpayers. Yes, it is positive for an autoroute. We are 10 years now. How many Cameroonians have died just within this year on the same road? Is it not worth declaring, as we declared a war against the people of the north and the southwest, is it not enough that the roads have killed to declare war against bad roads?
Where?
To save life. That is the emergency. When you have a government that is positive, such actions are normal.
But they will tell you that...
no, please, Mr.
Advancing.
I'm telling you that if you are living in a government that is proactive,
yes, very good.
Number of people being killed,
that is it.
Only Douala-Yaoundé warrants a war against bad roads.
Exactly.
Why not Limbe, Douala has just gone quiet these days.
Yeah, the Boya Douala road and Limbe.
Strange. Do we need to tell somebody that the economic demands of that stretch is different from another in another part of the world? Why not just give a budget to enlarge the roads?
But the sad reality, we have a new toll gate which is being constructed in
that is the interest. That's the interest of our government. I told people in a normal government, the head of state annulled the celebration of National Day last year. Have we asked ourselves where the budget that was previewed
how much?
now settles? And for what purpose has it been used? We have people suffering from malaria and they are dying every day. I asked my question. Research and development have not told Cameroonians that sleeping under a mosquito net does not protect you from mosquito. And that the best cure for malaria or mosquito is to kill the mosquito and keep the environment dry or free from mosquitoes. Imagine a whole Africa lobbying for mosquito nets. How do we solve malaria?
And you can use local materials to construct those things.
A lot of things.
A lot of things.
We don't even need to construct. We need to keep the environment clean.
Exactly.
Killing mosquito, bring us insecticide to spray the whole of Douala. When I asked people, a few days towards the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, there was the Zika virus. Few days to Olympic, the whole Brazil was perfumed with smoke to kill the Zika mosquito. And the thing went off completely. We are here fighting, sleeping under a mosquito net.
You sleep under the net, and in the afternoon you leave the net. And
are you talking of the afternoon? Before going to bed, you are in the parlor.
Yes, you're in the parlor. So we have to.
How do you protect?
So we have to put net across the Douala so that we just.
So if we search, which we know that there are a lot of insecticide that we can use to protect and kill mosquitoes, but the idea of the government is that an international lobbyist organization is that if we give them the chemical to kill mosquito, then the business cycle will end. How will we sell drugs? The highest drugs spent in African continent are drugs on the fight against malaria. Is it the Europeans to tell us what we need?
Thank you very much. Let me just take on this messages. Dr. Ako is Cameroon Man of the Year 2023. Higher education, agriculture, and scientific research do not collaborate in the recent. Why do not collaborate in the research? We should start organizing science and research fair to motivate and encourage youth on the importance of research, science, technology, and engineering and innovation. That is Dr. Ako. This person is alluding to what you just said, that there is no collaboration
among the
between the Ministry of the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Scientific Research, and Ministry of Forestry and Environment. That this collaboration should have been done in such a way that when there's a research at the innovation, Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation, Agriculture picks on it and
to work on it.
Exactly how research.
So by this participant, you are the Cameroon Man of the Year.
Thank you.
So now I read to say good afternoon to you in the studio. I am Councillor Mukefo Dennis Intiko. I am very happy with the analysis of Dr. Ako John in particular. Please, what can be said about what used to be called the Green Revolution? Where are we today? Probably that will be the next topic next week. Professor, we are almost out of time. What is the way forward of Cameroon research?
The way forward, what I think about with regard to this topic here, where is the place of research in the Cameroon's GDP, is to actually advise the authorities that be to make sure that they invest in those key sectors that can increase consumer spending, that can increase actually investment in both the private and the public sector, that can ensure that we do not import, but we should import more. That is what I can say. Thank you.
Yeah, and you said in answering the question, where is the place that we are in the minus? If we look at the GDP.
Yes.
Yeah, you said we are in the minus.
We are at the minus. We are the minus.
If we look at the place of Cameroon research in the GDP, we are in the minus.
We are at the minus. I'm asking myself, what are the parameters they use to calculate the GDP? Because when you look at all of them, look at consumer spending. How is it? How can you value it here in Cameroon? Look at investment, for example. Public investment in Cameroon. Look at private investment as well. Look at export. How much do we export? We look at all of those things and say, what are minus? Then look at now pollution. Look at the emissions of the greenhouse gases that have in Cameroon, for example. Look at the destruction of biodiversity ecological systems. We look at all of these things. We claim that Cameroon can have a kind of GDP which is of that level, 3.5. No, we are at the minus.
Okay. Yes. Of course, Barrister Dr. Ako John Ako, we are out of time. Now, what is the way forward? If you are to address the Minister of Scientific Research and Innovation, what will be your message be to her and the Ministry of Agriculture?
Yes, not all. All ministries are linked to research. There is no ministry without research. All. We might have just cited a few that are available. One of it is equally the cry that the money made for this research should be distinct to those who are carrying on the research. A lot of people are crying foul that money distinct for them still stay back in the pocket.
There's middleman. You have to pass with this man. You have to sign this amount.
Just disbursing the budget is a whole hurdle, and some people at times just abandon. So we should untie the administrative bottlenecks linked with finances.
Maybe you address.
Yes, that is what I'm saying. That the Minister of Research and Innovation, Scientific Development and Innovation should untie some of the administrative bottlenecks that are linked to finances linked to research. And secondly, that research has an indirect impact. Can the Ministry of Economy, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Forestry, the Ministry of Public Health give us a rundown of what research in Cameroon has produced or what it has generated and added value to the development of Cameroon in each domain? Every country has that particular mathematics. That is where some people will tell you that they invest a lot and equally reap a lot from it. Research should be tilted towards promoting the welfare of citizens. If we can't eat gari, we can't eat water fufu, we have miondo. And that today, cassava derivatives have multiplied, and even flour from cassava. To what extent can we have it in mind that next year, instead of 1,000 tons of cassava being produced, that Cameroon will be happy to have 200,000 or 10,000 more tons in the domain of cassava? We shall be happy that miondo sold or bobolo sold yesterday at 25 is today 100. It is an economic problem. It is an economic problem. Has the finance of the people equally increased by 75%? If not, there is economic or food crisis. We need to look at it. You talk of collocation. I want to present because the common Igbo cocoa is the life wire of the communities where I come from, particularly the people of Manyu. It was looked upon as the local rice of Manyu people because it's the first product they reap at every agricultural season. Today, Igbo cocoa is just an image of itself. What we find does not really represent economically wise and even nutritionally wise. There is a need for us to equally dictate local disaster. We are talking of the beetle. We are talking of the low harvest of rice, maybe at Dublin or somewhere in Krifujum or somewhere at Dembo Plains.
We're out of time. We're out of time. We're out of time. A lot of that.
So please, Cameroonians will be happy if research and development should occupy a potential and one not the most important part in state budgeting.
Good afternoon, House of Commons. Doctor, I cry when you mention malaria and mosquito. It is very easy to deal with this and have a free, healthy Cameroon. But the government is very selfish and careless. Thank you very much. And Dr. Okole Justin, right, the way forward, I have the way forward. One, have the political will to fund research, especially in agri and technological sector, to create private public collaborations to make use of research results. Thank you very much. Also want to thank you, Ella Divan from Victoria. Because of time, I say good afternoon to you in the studio. Very nice program. I want to confirm my brother who just wrote that Dr. Ako is a man of the year. Really, my grandfather, Dr. Ako, you are indeed a man of the year, because anytime you are on the panel, I always have everything we need to hear. In Cameroon's problem, we are concerned because you are always speaking the minds of the people. In fact, Doctor, you are one of the Cameroonians that really explain what the common man is going through, so that the government should know, even though they make use as they may not use it. And so because of time, all those of you who have sent us your messages, we will not have time. We're out of time. We want to appreciate those of you who are writing us from Germany. The program comes up every Sunday at exactly 12 to 1:30. I want to thank you very much, Professor Nsah, for coming.
Thank you very much.
And of course, Barrister Ako, thank you for coming.
A pleasure always to talk Cameroon.
And I want to wish you happy Sunday, Professor Okole Justin, who is also in a corner. Thanks to all those who took our time to participate. I leave you with this: no matter the matter, what matters is your matter. And what should matter for you is that research is the backbone of every economy. Bye-bye from Cameroon's political capital, economic capital, Douala. Fengu Jombange.
Welcome to a new